the running back room, and Johnny's asking, are we sleeping on Caziah Holmes? Maybe, man. Maybe, because he looks like a dude to me. He's big, talented. I mean, obviously, this is Benson's team at that position, and especially if he's going to hit it hard from day one, which, I think last year probably taught him that he could. Certainly we saw what he was in the second half of the season. So I see no reason for him to be hesitant. But I love the entirety of that backfield, but Caziah Holmes is a threat to get a lot of carries, I think, this year if he's going to play to his size.
Yeah, he is interesting. It's funny when we spoke to him. First of all, like last fall when he joined the team late in camp or the beginning of the season after he transferred from Penn State, so he wasn't eligible last year, and it wasn't like he stood out in practices last fall. We were out there every day. We knew who he was. We knew he was out there. But it wasn't like he was breaking off a ton of huge runs. And I remember talking to somebody on the staff, what do you guys think? And they said, well, it's hard to know because of the offensive line he's running behind in practice. Like he's behind that scout team offensive line. And he just, he doesn't have a chance to show what he can do. Then when we interviewed him in January, I think we got to interview all the transfers. And you could tell, man, the confidence in that guy was off the charts. And like there's a hunger. And I think he mentioned it in the question. Like there's a hunger and an attitude about Caziah Holmes that I think is very evident. And then you talk to the coaching staff about him, and one of the things we've been hearing is he's not like just happy to be in that running back room or maybe get some carries this year. Like apparently he challenges Trey Benson. He challenges Lawrence Tofield. Like he's pushing them to be better than what they were last year. Like he's got some leadership qualities about him that when you add that to his side and speed, he could be pretty special. I'm still riding with Trey Benson probably. And I love Rodney Hill and I love CJ. I love that whole room, like you said, but yeah, man, he might be something really cool to watch.
As Evan writes, can we talk about the linebacker room? It's my major concern, mostly depth going into the season. Well, Evan, you're echoing a sentiment that I've had for some time. I think it's an area of weakness. I think that they're potential two starters that are going to be on the field the most have a chance to have great seasons because of the aforementioned depth of the defensive line. So if those guys are kept clean, I think they can make plays. Tatum Bethune's got great instincts and is a ball hawk. I think they're good enough there with those two guys. But if somebody goes down, I don't like their depth. And if the defensive line, for some reason, and I think the defensive line is going to be good, but if they weren't, I don't think they're special at linebacker to overcome that. So that is an area. And when you're building, there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to stand out as you start to fill in the holes, on offensive line, on defensive line, at wide receiver. I mean, these are the things that are glaring. When you can't block it up, everybody sees it. When you don't have guys that can get open and get separation and make plays down the field, everybody sees it. When a defensive line can't stop the run and you're getting gashed, everybody sees it. But as you begin to fill in those holes, Ira, and the offensive line can block, and you are able to run the ball, and you can throw off a play action, and receivers make plays and change the score in a hurry, and all of a sudden your defensive line is shutting down the run, and you're getting a pass rush on 3rd and long. Well, now you start looking at other areas, like, well, where else can we be better? Right. A linebacker certainly is the candidate here. I don't think there's any question. It's the answer. It's linebacker, and that's fair. I just don't want it to make it sound like it's a knock on at least two of those starters.
Yeah, and thanks again, Evan. Appreciate it. It's hard to quantify the linebacker situation because on the one hand, it's probably not as strong as what you want. It's probably it's not elite. They're not elite at linebacker. At least these guys were not elite last year. We could say that for sure. So you think you might be close to elite on the defensive line, and you might be very good to above that in the secondary. So you'd like to see that linebacker core be to that level. At the same time, they're so much better than they were 2 or 3 years ago. Like the linebacker play a few years ago was a disaster. I mean, think about the guys they were rolling out there as starting linebackers just a few years ago. I'm not going to name them. Yeah. We don't hate them. We're not trying to pick fights with anybody, but it was not a good situation. So it's much better than that. And there's a possibility, two things I would say. And again, this is mostly about the starters. I don't know how good Omar Graham is as a redshirt freshman. We just haven't seen him enough. I do think DJ Lundy's come a long way. I don't know that you want him on the field 60 snaps though. So
Mhm.
really, it's about the starters: Tatum, Bethune, and Kalen DeLoach. Bethune, when we talked to him before spring break, he said he's probably lost, I don't know, maybe more than 10 pounds from last season. He admitted he got heavy last year because he was dealing with the injuries. He was not as light as he wanted to be. And now he's lost that weight. He's running better. He's healthy. If he stays healthy, that's a big deal. And then Kalen DeLoach, I think it's more about just kind of being and trusting the guys in front of him and not guessing. Because, we've talked about it before, Randy Shannon said that, Kalen sometimes did guess where he's supposed to go based on, and again, I think when linebackers are guessing, it's usually, I think, because they don't trust what's happening up front. And so they're not sure whether or not they can plug that hole, or maybe something's going to spill somewhere else. And so I think, if the line plays better, you may see those guys play better, but we don't, you can't say it's a strength of the defense right now unless they exceed expectations. I don't know. Do we need to have a talk with Norvell and maybe suggest not starting off with the 2-point plays? Is that just left unsaid?
That
Do we
was
need
just
to?
insidious. It was so. I was like, "What are you doing? You make so many good decisions, sir. But how is this the decision we've made out here today?"
Did you know we were coming?
Yeah.
Did you
Are
know
you
they
aware
opened the
people
gates?
are here?
That
It was
was
nuts.
yeah.
Yeah, the interception to start the spring game, and And by the
And
way,
then
2-point
and
plays.
I
You only
think
got like 4 of them, and everybody knows what they are.
and then Micah Pittman got hurt trying to run somebody over. He had to come back later. I mean, it was just a complete disaster. I'll tell you what, man. Like, Florida State fans, they've been rewarded because obviously what happened last season, Norvell did what they did, and they won 10 games and they killed it in the portal and starting to do better in recruiting, and everything's working out. But that was one of a couple of things that he did where, like, you can see the fans being like, "What are we doing here?" But the fans kind of like hung in there in the spring game. I mean, after the first 5 minutes, I wouldn't have blamed people if they walked out. It was insane. So, but the fans have been loyal, and they were rewarded for sure last year.
It's funny. Spring games. I used to say this, even even when Jimbo was winning a national championship and they were loaded with talent. It's hard to make spring games interesting. Well, Glenn's not going to ascend this year. Anywhere. I think it is between Duffy and Tate, and I would think that Tate
Still the
should
leader in
be
the
able to
clubhouse.
ward him off, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything that makes Duffy looks better, which we expected.
Yeah, he looks improved.
We knew he would look better, and he has looked better, and he's got a ton of ability. But I mean, I think Tate looks very good. I mean, Tate, from what we've seen so far, if Tate were to have to go out there and play, you'd feel really good about it. He looks better. He looks better than any backup here since Jacob Coker. Since that race back in 2013 or so. So I think you're not like, I don't think you're struggling to figure out who's going to be the backup. If AJ pushes, that's great. But and I like Brock Glenn a lot. He's impressive, but I mean, I don't think he's anywhere close to
No,
being in the
true freshman. I've only been here for a few weeks. No, that's tough.